So, good morning to all. In our previous class, we discussed the concept called as the term manufacturing cost. What is meant by manufacturing cost? We discussed in the previous class. Manufacturing cost means any cost which is incurred by the organization. For what purpose? Two types of purpose. Purpose number one, manufacturing of goods. Purpose number two, rendering of services. Okay, any cost means total cost. Total cost can be segregated into two types. Number one, direct cost, indirect cost. Is it right? Direct cost can be classified into three types: direct material, direct labor, direct expense. You should remember the chart. Okay, direct material, direct labor, direct expense. If you aggregate means total, ORR add, we will get prime cost. All indirect cost can be classified into three types. What ma? Indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expense. All the things aggregated will get overhead. Overhead can be classified into two types: based on function, based on variability. Clear? Based on function, POH, AOH, SOH. Based on POH full form production overhead. AOH full form administrative overhead. SOH full form selling and distribution overhead. Is it right? POH is also known as factory overhead. Factory overhead is also known as manufacturing overhead. Manufacturing overhead is also known as works overhead. Four terminologies is there, alternative names for POH. Which name should be remembered? All the names should be remembered. Sometimes question paper will specify manufacturing overhead, sometimes production overhead, sometimes factory overhead, like that. Clear? Prime cost plus POH is equal to factory cost. Factory cost plus AOH is equal to COGP. COGP plus SOH is equal to cost of sales, ORR, total cost, plus profit minus loss is equal to what ma? Sales. But in our previous class, because of technical reason, not time permits, we are not discussed variability. Correct? So overhead is classified into how many types? Two types: based on function, based on variability. Based on variability, three types: fixed overhead, variable overhead, semi-variable overhead. What ma? Fixed overhead, variable overhead, semi-variable overhead. Is it right? Listen carefully ma. This is our starting journey of your costing life. Correct? Same inter group 1 starting, advanced to group 2 and going on final. Is it clear? Please remember, all the books of costing, what ma? All the books of costing is based on CAS. Based on what ma? CAS. How to maintain books of costing? Based on CAS. Based on what ma? CAS. What is meant by CAS? Cost accounting standards. Clear? For example, how to disclose material? How to disclose labor? I don't know. I have to refer to what? CAS. If any question related to books of costing, we have to refer cost accounting standard. For example, I am searching for one matter relating to books of costing. That question answer is not available in the cost accounting standard, then follow GAAP. These two rules should be kept in the mind. Not only inter group 1, you should kept in the mind for group 2 as well as final level as well as your professional career. First priority, CAS. If CAS is not mentioned anything, go for GAAP. GAAP full form generally accepted cost accounting principles. In accounts they will call GAAP, GAAP. In our costing, GAAP. Is it clear? Clear? First priority to whom? CAS. If CAS is not specified anything related to such matter, then go for GAAP. Is it clear? Is it clear? Excellent. Now tell me, my dear, now tell me, Overhead can be classified on the basis of variability. How many types? 3 types. Fixed overhead, variable overhead, semi-variable overhead. Listen carefully. Generally, as per GAAP, for what? As per GAAP, semi-variable overhead shall not exist. That is the reason I told CAS, GAAP. You should remember. Clear? Now tell me, as per GAAP, semi-variable overhead, is it exist or not exist? Not exist. If it is exist in practical level, it should be segregate. Such a semi-variable cost, some portion to fixed, some portion to variable. How to segregate, we will discuss in the later classes. Is it clear? Clear? Now tell me, semi-variable overhead exist or not exist? General rule not exist. If it is exist, it should be bifurcate. Some portion to the fixed, some portion to the variable. This is a semi-variable. Who told? CAS told us semi-variable should segregate. Who told? GAAP. Is it clear? Clear? Now tell me, treatment of semi-variable cost. Treatment of semi-variable cost or treatment of semi-variable overhead. Treatment of what? Semi-variable overhead. I am searching in cost accounting standard. Nothing is specified. Then I will go for GAAP. If cost accounting standard mentioned anything, you have to follow cost accounting standards. Is it clear? Now tell me, on the basis of variability, how many types? Don't tell 2 types. You should tell 3 types. Semi-variable overhead, sometimes it exists in the practical life. Clear? If it is exist, it should be segregate. What is the procedure for segregation? We will discuss in today or tomorrow class. Let it to be. Is it clear? If it is possible, time permits today. If it is not possible, in future classes, in introduction to costing itself, we will discuss the concept called as segregation procedure for semi-variable overhead into fixed portion, variable portion. Is it clear? Yes. See, this is earlier class. Previous class we already discussed. If this chart is converted into, come on, statement, such a statement is called, we already wrote. Correct? Correct? Why to study material chapter? Don't tell, for the purpose of marks. To pass the assignment, don't tell. Why to study material chapter? To fill the cost sheet. See, direct material how much we wrote? 5. Instead of 5, if 7 or 2 or 1, which one is correct? We don't know. That is the reason we will study material chapter. Is it right? Right? Why to study labor chapter? Why to study labor chapter? To fulfill the cost sheet as a second line. Why to study direct expense? To fill the cost sheet. Why to study overhead chapter? To fill the POH, AOH, SOH. Is it clear? Please respond. So, material chapter, labor chapter, direct expense chapter, overhead chapter. 4 chapters is called elements of costing. Elements of costing. My elements of costing knowledge. For suppose you are a fresher, you don't know labor chapter. If you, after completion of labor chapter, you will get to know what is meant by Halsey formula, what is meant by Rowan formula, what is meant by Merrick's formula, what is meant by Bidoxo point system formula. Okay, if you go through the material chapter, what is meant by EOQ, how to maintain stores ledger. So many topics we will discuss to get the knowledge. To get knowledge, marks is secondary. Knowledge is most important. Why? Because for completion of CMA, your professional life is carried based on the costing only. That is the reason we are going for based on knowledge. If elements of knowledge applicable to various industries is called methods of costing. I already told in the previous class. Clear? My elements of costing knowledge is applicable to construction industry is called contract costing. Is it clear? If my knowledge is applicable to service industry is called operating costing or service costing. My knowledge is applicable to those industry converting raw material into finished good in a batch wise. batch costing. Those industry converting raw material into finished good in more than one process, process costing. Those industry is converting raw material into finished good. Unfortunately, I am getting more than one type of finished good, joint and byproduct costing. I told example of crude oil. If I took crude oil and process, I will get what? Petrol, diesel, kerosene, waste oil, lubricant oil. Is it clear, my dear? Excellent. Next, see, we already told elements of costing. Which chapters? Material, labor, overhead, direct expense. Methods of costing: job costing, batch costing, contract costing, process costing, joint and byproduct costing, operating costing. These chapters will be helpful for what purpose? To achieve primary objective. Costing will be studied two reasons: primary objective, secondary objective. In day one class I told. Are you remember? What is the secondary objective? Cost control, cost reduction. I am running a business entity. I have intention to control the cost or reduce the cost. Then I should use techniques of costing. What ma? Techniques of costing. That is also discussed in the earlier class. Is it right? What is the techniques of costing is available? Standard costing, marginal costing, absorption costing, uniform costing, historical costing, relevant costing, activity based cost. So many are there. That is the reason I mentioned etc. Activity, after activity based costing, target costing is there, Kaizen costing is there. So many costing will be studied under final. Clear? At inter level, what are the techniques is available for your syllabus? Standard costing, group 1, group 2, both are available. Marginal costing including absorption costing. Group 1 costing will be there, group 2 costing will be there. Activity based costing, only group 2 costing consists. Chapter called as activity based costing. Is it right? Clear? Excellent. See, what is this statement? What is the statement? Cost sheet based on certain assumptions. This is not original cost sheet. This is cost sheet based on certain assumption. What are the assumption? Opening WAP is equal to 0. Closing WAP is equal to 0. Opening stock of finished good is equal to 0. Closing stock of finished good is equal to 0. If all the four assumptions are valid, this is the cost sheet. If any of the assumption is invalid, this is not original cost sheet. We have to learn or we have to redraft cost sheet. How to redraft? We will study in next chapter. First chapter introduction, second chapter cost sheet, third chapter material. Is it right? Correct? Now tell me, is this cost sheet? Is this cost sheet? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Subject to certain assumption. What are the assumptions? Opening WAP 0. Closing WAP 0. Listen carefully, my dear. If opening WAP exists, closing WAP exists, factory cost can be classified into two types. Factory cost gross, factory cost net. How to calculate we will discuss. Don't worry. Is it clear? Clear? Now tell me. We will write here. This is the cost sheet. This is the cost sheet based on, come on, based on assumption that there is no opening WAP, closing WAP, opening stock of finished good, closing stock of finished good. No means 0. No means what ma? 0. Is it right? Clear? Excellent. Now we will going further. Listen carefully ma. Cost classification. What ma? Cost classification. Listen carefully. Listen ma. Cost can be classified into various